On today's show, Ime Udoka sends a direct message to the Houston Rockets starters in their loss against the Golden State Warriors. Effort is non-negotiable. We're going to talk about it all right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Going into the All-Star break, not with a bang, but with a whimper. What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Drop us a comment while you're there. I want your thoughts on Ime Udoka benching the hell out of the starters in this loss against the Warriors. Give me your thoughts on the effort, just everything from this game, right? There's a lot. There's kind of two sides of this argument about how Ime decided to handle things. We're going to talk about that a lot on today's episode. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com to take advantage of that offer. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. All right, Houston Rockets, 105-98 loss to the Golden State Warriors in a game that, it really felt like the Rockets were getting their mojo back a little bit against the Phoenix Suns. Felt like they got back to doing a lot of the little things that they needed to do to win games. And then you saw all of that kind of go out the window against this Golden State Warriors team. Rockets got off to a really slow start, deficit early, 28-19 after one quarter of play. And deficit balloons even further just before, at halftime. Warriors won the second quarter 34-29. And the Rockets starters just really didn't have it in this game. They looked disinterested, a little mentally checked out, and I fully agree with and support Ime Udoka's decision to essentially send a very direct message to his starters in this game. And it wasn't, and look, he gave his starters multiple chances to kind of wake the hell up and get things going in this game, and they couldn't do it. Look, the Rockets trailed by as many as 24 points in this one. And where things where Ime tried to send his first wake-up call to the starters was near the tail end of the second quarter. The Rockets had a bunch of really egregious turnovers all in a row. Like in the span of something like 75 seconds, they had 4 different turnovers. First it was Jalen Green, then it was Dillon Brooks, then it was Ime Thompson, and then there was another one. And the real kicker, the straw that broke the Ime Udoka camel's back, right, was an inbound pass to Ime Thompson, no pressure whatsoever on the ball, and Ime Thompson just takes his eyes off of the basketball, and it goes out of bounds. And Ime immediately looked down the bench, called up 5 guys, and did a 5-man line change because he was sick and tired of what he was seeing on the basketball court. And I agree with it. I don't know how you watch that game and think that the starters deserved a fair shake at it, whatever. They weren't playing like they cared. And that's just flat out disrespectful. It's disrespectful to the coaching staff. It's disrespectful to Ime. It's disrespectful to your teammates. And it's disrespectful to the fans, to go out there and put forth such lazy, poor effort. And that's the message that it felt like Ime Udoka was trying to get across is, he pulled them out. And then he gave him a chance. To be fair, he came back. He could have sent the message, and he could have started the bench guys in the second half. He could have done all sorts of crazy things, right? He came back with the starters in the second half, gave him a few minutes to see if they could turn things around, and they still were very clearly not playing to the best of their abilities, not really fighting the way that they needed to. And so Ime pulled the plug. Ime pulled all the starters out, threw the bench guys in, and shout out to the bench guys. Shout out to every single member of that Stay Ready crew Jae'Sean Tate, Jock Landale, Nate Williams, a newer kind of honorary member of the Stay Ready crew, honestly, Nate Williams was hooping, man. We'll talk about him a little bit later. And they wound up playing with some desire, right? Some passion, and they actually played hard, and they made the Warriors work, and they cut the lead all the way from 24 down. They cut the lead to 2. A one-possession game, multiple times. They just didn't have enough juice to get over the hump. And we can go back and forth, and a lot of Rockets fans are on one side, and other Rockets fans are on the other side. There's a lot of Rockets fans who are like, nah, Ime Udoka did the right thing by leaving that, like, the bench guys deserved a chance to try and close that game out because they're the ones who brought the Rockets back into it. And then there's the other side of fans who are saying, no, it was Ime's stubbornness that lost them this game, that once the bench guys got it within striking distance, he should have gone back to the starters. And where I ultimately land is, hell no. I'm glad Ime didn't go back to the starters. And he said as much when he was asked post-game if he thought about going back to the starters, if he was, tempted to go back to the starters once it was within, a few points or whatever. Ime said, no, not at all. Right. And it's very important to point out here that when we're saying the term starters here, we're not talking about Aaron Holiday. We're not talking about Amin Thompson. Those guys were still playing with effort, right? They were playing hard. We're talking about Jalen Green. We're talking about Alperen Sengun, and we're talking about Dillon Brooks. Those guys were not playing the way that they needed to play to be able to win this basketball game. And so the message that Ime Udoka sent was to those 3 guys in particular. Aaron Holiday started this game. Amin Thompson started this game. And yeah, Amin Thompson had a horrendous half. Like, Amin Thompson was playing some really awful basketball. But he was trying. He was working hard. He wasn't out there just coasting. He wasn't out there just going through the motions, right? And Aaron Holiday was flat out playing his ass off. Best Aaron Holiday game as a member of the Houston Rockets, bar none. 25 points, 10 of 20 shooting, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, just doing everything he possibly could to try and will the Rockets back into this game. And ultimately, they fell a little bit short. They didn't have that final push to get over the hump, unfortunately. And at the end of the day, look, yeah, I fully agree with Ime, man. The starters didn't deserve to close out this game, and I understand the importance of him wanting to send that message to them to get that point across, especially in the closing game just before the All-Star break. Because now this is going to be something that Jalen, Alpi, and Dillon are going to have to think long and hard about over the All-Star break, right? And hopefully they can reconfigure themselves, get locked in over the break, and come back strong in their first game after the break, which is at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And there's a lot riding on that game. Right now, the Wolves are up 2-1 in the season series. 2-1? Yeah, 2-1 in the season series. And if the Rockets win, they tie the season series. If they lose, then the Wolves have the tiebreaker, and the Wolves are only a few losses back of the Rockets in the standings, and that tiebreaker could prove to be really important down the line. So, look, ultimately, it was a messy game, and I'm very proud of the effort from the bench guys to get them back into this game. I want to talk about some of the specifics from what we saw out of those guys. In particular, Nate Williams, who was really good in his minutes a little bit later on. I also want to run back Ime's post-game presser. And we'll do that here in the next segment, talk about what he had to say after this loss. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Here's a few different ways that you can take advantage of this deal. The game day feast. After an epic 50-point performance, celebrate by ordering wings, pizza, or burgers from your favorite spot delivered straight to your doorstep. Maybe you got some late night cravings or lunch on the go, fueling a watch party for maybe there's a back-to-back game going on, whatever you need. DoorDash will have you covered. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save when any player scores 50 or more in a game. Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's hear what Ime Udoka had to say after this loss in his post-game interview.
Coach, just where is this team's headspace heading into the All-Star break? I know you guys have lost 7 out of the last 11 games. Today, it kind of seemed like they hit a wall early on. How would you assess the team heading into the break?
Could be mentally and physically fried, certain people, certain players, but yeah, I don't know. Everybody's in this situation right now, going into All-Star break. Everybody's playing. They played a back-to-back yesterday in Dallas, but they came out with some pace and effort and unselfishness and ball movement, and we didn't. And so, really, I don't know. It can be, I may be right or wrong about that our guys are tired, but like I said, everybody's going through it right now, so the lack of competitiveness is not really an excuse. Everybody's dealing with the same things. We're a little injured, obviously, but it's night and day, obviously, seeing the bench come in and play with that pace and the effort and physicality and ball movement, togetherness, unselfishness, all those things.
Are there specific areas that you want to address over the break? I know this team has gone up and down, and they're still a top 5 team in the West, but are there specific areas that you want to address?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you have to play with a certain amount of aggression and physicality and effort, or you don't give yourself a chance. And that's what we did, I would say, the first 35, 40, whatever games of the year. We did that and gave ourselves a chance every night. And when we don't do that, you see what the results are lately. And so that alone takes care of some things, but a lot of the same mistakes on both ends of the ball. Lack of communication on defense, playing in the crowd, or selfishness on offense. And whether it's intentional or unintentional, it's wrong. You got 3 guys in the paint on you. You got to find your open teammates, and that's something we've been harping, and we see the results when we do it the right way, and that's what the bench unit just came in and did. Moved the ball, didn't play in the crowd, got wide open looks, and make or miss them.
When did you know you had, go ahead. When did you know you had found something with that group?
I mean, it was pretty evident right when they came in, the way they played. I mean, into the half, they played with some pace and some effort, and it was just night and day. You could see the difference. So I saw that pretty early on, and then obviously our guys to start the third didn't have much, so went with them pretty early.
Nate Williams is somebody that stays ready, the ultimate professional. What did you like about his minutes and the effort he gave tonight?
Yeah, he was aggressive on defense, picking up full court, and he may get a foul every now and then, but at least he's changing taking them out of their rhythm. Offensively, he's in attack mode at all times and tries to make the right play, and so credit to him and that group that came in. It wasn't just him. Obviously, Aaron always stays ready, and Jock and Jeff and Jae'Sean, and kind of sprinkled our men back in there. But, yeah, those guys were, the epitome of professionals and stay ready and a little fresher, obviously, without playing the minutes that our other guys are. But it was obviously apparent when they came in that the game changed.
You talked about your players might be a little worn down. As a head coach, you don't get it to be fried. What can this break do for you to be able to get away from the game and maybe recharge yourself? What can the break do for you personally?
I don't think we really get away from it. You understand what's coming up, and it's more of a race now, to the end and now. And for us taking a look, it just gives us a chance to reflect and see what we've done well and what we've done poorly lately, and avoid those things, coming back from the break. And so it's a good chance for us to obviously reset and evaluate everything, lineups, rotations, see what we got coming back and find out what's best for us for these last 20-plus games.
The bench got you back in the game. Were you tempted at all to go back to some of the starters there near the end?
No, not at all.
Is it disappointing for you, because you subbed those guys out to end the first half, to see them come out and kind of do the same thing in the second half? Just what was that? How disappointing was that for you to see?
Yeah, it was more of the same. We talked about at halftime that we're not even giving ourselves a chance, with all the things I just mentioned, and didn't change much, so got those guys out pretty quickly. So, yeah, you could say I was disappointed and also excited and happy for the group that came in and did what they did.
How much of that the lack of effort and some of those things can be fixed maybe with Fred back on the court, just as a leader, getting those guys together. Could say he was on the court, could that have maybe helped in some of that?
Yeah, I mean, the effort, you got to find that within yourself, and but what he does do is get us organized, and obviously I think you can see how much we're missing him just as far as that. Other guys are getting opportunities to kind of initiate, not just be scorers, and some are doing okay, some are struggling, quite frankly, and so yeah, we understand what he is for us as far as another coach on the floor. Leadership, point guard is one of the most important positions, and we've seen how much we struggle without him. Other guys have kind of been in and out, and we can still maintain some things, but we're really struggling with his lack of leadership out there.
Thanks, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think the most important thing that Ime Udoka put out there was early in that presser. He basically said, through the first 40 or so games of the season, right, that the way that they played, the effort that they showed, the physicality, the intensity, all that, they gave themselves a chance to win every single night. And unfortunately, this is the tough reality for this Rockets team. First off, they are dealing with injuries, right? They're missing key guys. Still no Fred, still no Jabari, no Tari, Eason in this game, because it was back-to-back. So you're missing some of your key contributors, and that's definitely an issue, right? Like we talked about in a recent episode, you're missing the links in the chain that help make this team strong when they're all fully available. However, the biggest area of success, the area that this team was able to really use to impose their will on other teams earlier in the season was for the first 35, 40 some odd games, right? Every single night, this team fought hard. They were the aggressors. They came out, they were the most physical team on the court. They played with the most energy. They crashed the glass. They took care of the basketball. They did things at a very, very high level, and they needed to give themselves a chance to win, because ultimately this Rockets team really struggles offensively. And sure, Ime is not blameless in this. The offense needs help. It absolutely does. I would be over the moon if this offseason the Rockets went out and hired like an offensive coordinator for Ime Udoka. Very similar to how during the James Harden era under Mike D'Antoni, they hired Jeff Bezelic to run the defense because defense was not Mike D'Antoni's thing. So they brought in a defensive specialist to handle the defensive side of the basketball. I would love it if the Rockets went out and got a offensive coordinator to pair with Ime Udoka, somebody that could just handle that side of the basketball and let Ime be the head coach and, be the intimidating, defensive-minded guy, whatever. Let him do his thing. Because the Rockets fans who are frustrated with Ime's offense, you're absolutely right. The offense is frustrating at times. But the one area that this Rockets team built their identity on was outworking other teams. And by doing that, you gave yourself a chance to win every single night. Because unfortunately, the tough reality is this Rockets team, I could probably point to 10, maybe even 15 teams in the NBA that have more like just flat out top end talent than this Rockets team. That's the reality of the situation, is the Rockets don't have enough talent to just get by and to coast in a given game. They have to outwork you, especially when you're missing so many key guys. When you're missing Fred, when you're missing Jabari, when you're missing Tari, you can't just roll the ball out there and act like you don't care. And that's exactly what's been happening. That's what happened during some of those games during the 6-game losing streak. That's what happened in this game against the Warriors. That's kind of what happened for a quarter, couple quarters against the Toronto Raptors. This team has gotten a level of they just become apathetic, and they have gotten away from what made them so good for the first half of the season. And hopefully the All-Star break is a chance for them to recharge their batteries and come back refreshed and revitalized and refocused, and they're able to recommit themselves to the identity that they carved out earlier this season. But if they don't do that, if they can't get back to the effort and the fight and the physicality that they had earlier this season, then this Rockets team is headed for some very strong disappointment in whatever version of the postseason looks like for this team. Forget about home court advantage. They're about to rack up a lot more losses. They can't get back to playing how they were earlier this season, which all hinges on, first, the defensive identity of this team, getting stops, getting out in transition, taking care of the basketball, crashing the glass, all these little things that I feels like the team is kind of taken for granted at this point in the season. So I'd take no exception with anything that Ime Udoka said in that post-game press conference. I think he was on the money with all of it. Coming up, I do want to talk about some of the individual performances in this game. A quick observation about guys like Nate Williams. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Using FanDuel's live betting feature is so simple because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether you're backing your team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three-pointer. Never feel like you missed your chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, first off, I want to give a lot of credit to the members of the Stay Ready crew, right? The guys who claw the Rockets kind of back into this game. Jae'Sean Tate, Jock Landale, Nate Williams, obviously Aaron Holiday, and then Ime Thompson was out there as well as part of that group. Look, first and foremost, those guys played well. And Ime highlighted it in his post-game presser, right? He said those guys might, clearly are a lot fresher than the other guys, and I've talked about this ad nauseum over recent episodes, as I do feel like there is a level of almost burnout that comes associated with the play style that Ime Udoka is demanding of his players, the effort and intensity that has to be exerted on a nightly basis, on a possession by possession basis for this team to play at the best of its abilities. And maybe there are some diminishing returns on that. Maybe the identity of this team can't simply be outwork and be more physical and whatever of the, you got to do those things or you're not gonna be able to win basketball games. Maybe that's not sustainable, and we'll see. I hope I get proven wrong. I hope they're able to get back to that identity in the second half, and this Rockets team can show me, hey, no, Ime, the identity that he wants for this team, it can work. They don't need to have a true blue star player, and they can still win at a high level, all that stuff. But until I see it, right, I've got my doubts at this point. And again, that's why I do fully support the idea of kind of an offensive makeover, an overhaul, whatever, for this team at some point in the not so distant future. But getting back to these guys, the Stay Ready crew, I just want to point out that these types of players, in particular, guys like Nate Williams, Jae'Sean Tate, these guys they're legitimately good players. Like Jae'Sean Tate is he's in a weird way, he's kind of like a poor man's less athletic Ime Thompson when you think about it, right? With all the things that he's able to do on the floor, he's not as big, he's not as athletic, obviously, but he defends, he hustles, he rebounds, he's got like a decent array of moves in and around the basket. He's actually, I don't even know the numbers off the top of my head, but eye test tells me that he's been at least a slightly more competent three-point shooter from the corners this season. At least it feels like he's making a lot more threes this year. And, he just does a little bit of everything, right? He can handle the rock some if you need to, initiate some offense, set screens. Nate Williams, same thing. Nate Williams is really comfortable with the basketball in his hands. He's got great length. He makes good decisions. He swings the ball. He attacks. He kicks it back out. And these types of players they're not crazy integral to the Rockets' success right at this very moment, but these are the types of guys, and this is something that I think does bode well for the Rockets in the not-so-distant future, is the fact that Rafael Stone has been able to find guys like Tate, like Nate Williams, right, and hold on to them and, kind of have them riding at the end of the bench. But when we do see them play, like, they look pretty decent. Like, those guys could be legitimate, 8th, 9th rotation guys on some other teams around the NBA landscape. And the Rockets just have them buried at the end of their bench as depth pieces. Those are the types of players and more specifically, the types of contracts that you're going to need down the line when you start to, approach true kind of contender status, right? You see it right now with teams like, for example, the Denver Nuggets, right? Who are, I believe they're a second apron team, if I'm not mistaken, right? They're in, luxury tax hell, and they've got tons of money that they're paying out to obviously Jokic and Jamal Murray and MPJ and Aaron Gordon and all this money, right? And that's why they've had to let other pieces walk, like Bruce Brown and Jeff Green and then most recently KCP. So, unfortunately, they've lost some of those significant pieces, but they've had to use kind of their farm system, and their front office has had to do a good job scouting and finding younger talent and other kind of, I don't want to say fringe NBA guys, but cheaper contract guys to kind of fill the void and to step in and be able to provide them serviceable minutes. And so I do think that there's I guess this is just kind of like my takeaway from this is just, it's really beneficial that if Rafael Stone is able to find guys consistently like Jae'Sean Tates, like the Nate Williamses of the world, then when the Rockets do at some point down the line establish themselves with a top dog, a true superstar who's going to command a ton of money, and when they start having to pay out, full-blown max contracts to, potentially down the line, Alperen Sengun, Jalen Green, whoever else, right? When the tax bill starts to skyrocket a little bit, it's going to be really beneficial for the front office to have that confidence that they'll be able to find guys to kind of flesh out the roster a little bit more when you are ultimately paying all these guys, when the core seven start, all their different contract extensions start kicking in, all that stuff. So just some food for thought there. And I really do wonder if there's a world where Nate Williams honestly might be given a little bit of a chance to carve out some rotation minutes. Like I've been saying it since like 2 summer leagues ago that Nate Williams deserves a spot on an NBA roster. He can play, man. He defends, he hustles, he's smart with the basketball. He's got great IQ on both sides of the court. Just really like what he brings to the table. And, it's unfortunate that he hasn't really gotten a true shot yet to make an NBA roster. And I didn't really know if it was ever going to happen with this Rockets team. I don't know whose minutes he would ultimately have to wind up taking in the rotation, but something tells me that if the Rockets wanted to, like, Nate Williams could be a plus, like a positive impact player if given the opportunity, very similar to how Jae'Sean Tate, when inserted, against a specific matchup or in certain lineups, can be really impactful and help change the flow of a game just with his energy alone, checking in and being so versatile and doing so many little things that are conducive to winning basketball. So I just wanted to give those guys their flowers. I really enjoyed watching that comeback and seeing them kind of, play with some pride, honestly, because the starters certainly weren't doing it in this game. With that, that's all I've really got from this one. It's unfortunate to head into the All-Star break, with, such bad vibes on the getaway game. But I will say I'm optimistic that, after recalibrating over the break, the Rockets will be able to come back. They'll get Fred, they'll get Jabari, hopefully, for that first Wolves game, and be able to get back on track post All-Star break. Also very much looking forward to seeing Amin Thompson, Reed Shepherd, and Alperen Sengun repping the Houston Rockets at All-Star weekend. Don't want to miss Amin Thompson and Reed Shepherd taking part in the Rising Stars game Friday night, and then obviously Alperen Sengun in the All-Star game, the new format All-Star game on Sunday night. So definitely check those out. We'll definitely have a recap up to talk about all of those events and how the different Houston Rockets fared over the course of All-Star weekend, plus just talking about the All-Star weekend festivities. So be on the lookout for that to start your week next week. But with that, that's going to do it for our episode. I do want all your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Swing by, tell me how you feel about Ime Udoka's decision making. Was it the right move to send a message to the starters, or was Ime just being stubborn? Let me know in the comments. Remember, the best way to help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe and comment on YouTube. Subscribe to the daily Locked On Rockets newsletter as well. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.